Hey everyone, I'm Tamir. You know me. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Honeycomb. I'm going to be talking to you today about a really annoying disease that I was diagnosed with. It's called ulcerative colitis, and it is the definition of a pain in your butt. It's a really frustrating illness to have, and I was diagnosed really early on, so I have a ton of experience sort of being in this world of autoimmune gut conditions from the time that I was 18 all the way to now I'm 27. So a lot of experience there that I want to share because I've noticed part of some of the support groups that I'm in for colitis, for Crohn's, that people sometimes don't really know how to navigate sharing about their illness, whether it's with family, with friends, coworkers, whether they're at university, at a restaurant, whatever it might be. There is that initial hesitation to share your illness with others because sort of the tendency is to keep it to yourself and be private about it. But this is one of those conditions that the more private you are, the more you're going to suffer in the short term and over the long term. So I'm going to talk about the consequences, and then I'm going to talk about how we can remedy that and break out of the shell and share with everyone. So I've been seeing some stories in these support groups that I'm in. Again, I'm in some colitis support groups, some Crohn's support groups, general IBD, IBS support groups on Facebook. By the way, if you're not a part of these, you should definitely join them because they're super useful, and there's, the camaraderie between people who have issues with their gut. There's a lot of tips, useful resources, all that fun stuff. I have a story and I was on a trip, and I was actually on the other side of the world, and this was a group trip with people, and I was, the same thing. I was going to the washroom, and every time you go, it depletes you of energy. And I was so fatigued, I was so tired, but I thought, hey, if I tell them that I'm having this issue, if I tell the group leaders that I'm having this issue, I might have to leave the trip. And I didn't want to leave the trip. I wanted to keep participating, even if I was really on my last legs and I didn't have much energy. But because I did that, I ended up in the hospital for about a week and a half when I got back to Vancouver. So definitely let the people know around you when you're exhibiting issues. The next thing is, okay, let's say you have your diagnosis and you know it, but hey, doesn't matter even if you have your diagnosis, you're on medication, there's a long period of getting into remission, and you're going to have, flare-ups, you're going to have big flare-ups, you're going to have mini flare-ups, and you don't know when they're going to arise. And when they do arise, you still have to carry on with your life because unfortunately, this is one of those diseases that it slows you down, but you still kind of keep going. You're not necessarily out for 6 months unless it's really, 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 really bad. Most of the time, you're sort of in this fight while the rest of your life is going on. So let's zoom in on that. You could be at work. You could be at school. You could be with friends. Wherever you might be, you could even be traveling, but I don't recommend traveling when you're trying to get into remission. But of course, life goes on, so you might be in any situation. So you need to first become comfortable with yourself and take away the stigma of, I don't know that there is a stigma, but if there is one and you believe there is one, you need to get rid of that. It's perfectly normal. There's a lot of people who have this. It's perfectly normal to have a condition with your gut, a problem with your gut. Most people do. A lot of people aren't diagnosed. So don't feel bad like you can't share it with people and say, hey, you know what? I have a condition. I got to go. Or you know what? Can we not go on the super long walk in this park with no access to washrooms? So you need to be mindful, first of all, planning your day, planning whether your work, whether you're with friends or wherever it might be. And that's hard, right? It's hard to tell your friends, hey, we can't go to this area because I don't know if there's going to be access to washrooms there. But I promise you this, if you don't tell them and you go and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to feel like a social outcast, you're going to feel even worse when you're in the middle of that long walk or in the middle of that area without access and you're really going to have to go, and then it's too late. Always make sure that before you go out, on these outings, that you have a contingency plan. And you let your friends know about that, because sometimes they'll say, well, why can't we go? Why can't we go on this thing? What's wrong with that? What are you scared of this or scared of that? They might try to peer pressure you or guilt you into doing whatever they want to do. And that's just even more social friction. The number one thing is be transparent. If they're your friends, they're not going to judge you. If they're your family, they'll probably judge you, but they're going to support you. If it's your coworkers, they legally can't judge you, because then you have a court case against them. You could probably sue them. So you're safe, right? Just know that you're safe, and nothing bad is going to happen if you tell people, hey, I have a condition. If anything, people will be nicer to you and they'll treat you better. Now, businesses. This is an issue because, especially during COVID, access to public washrooms is very tricky. So you need to sort of make sure you can not only be confident, but be assertive and say, this is a severe condition that I have. I need your help. I need to be able to access the washroom, because otherwise I'm in danger. But it's something that you have to practice and say, hey, no, there isn't another option. You don't need to be ashamed of this. That's another thing. You're not an outcast of society because you have this. And it doesn't make you better or worse than anyone else. It just puts you in a certain category. And again, these are things that you don't know the first day. You don't get diagnosed and then you're shameless the next day. It takes time to develop that transparency with yourself and with others. It's really important to, in that journey, to look at other people. This is why the support groups are amazing. These organizations like Crohn's Colitis Canada that share these stories, you can look to these stories and learn a lot. Okay, so here's some 5 quick tips for you to keep in mind when you're going through this process of coming to terms with your condition, with your IBD, IBS, whatever it might be. So number 1, you got to be confident. You have to trust that the people around you in your life, whether it's at work, at school, at home with your friends, that they're not going to judge you, okay? And most people won't. This has become more common than ever. You need to learn how to be confident. It takes practice. It takes practice not to judge yourself, to accept yourself. And then once you accept yourself, other people, it'll be easier for them to help you and support you because you're transparent with them. Number 2 is don't be ashamed. Everyone has something that they have to go through. This is your adversity. This is your challenge. Learn to own it. Make it part of your story. Be proud of it. Wear it as a badge of honor, and people will see that, and they're going to think that's pretty cool. Number 3, when you're going out, before you leave the house, you need to have a plan, especially during COVID, wherever you go, work, social, school, whatever it might be. Have a plan, have a contingency plan. Don't take any chances, especially if you're in a flare-up, especially if you're getting into remission. You need to know exactly where are the available resources and washrooms for you in advance. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. It's not fun. We don't need any accidents to happen. That's not the vibe that we're looking for. So we always want to make sure in advance we know what's happening, and let the people who you're with know as well, so you don't just randomly take off and they're wondering, what's got into this person. All right, number 4, this is very important. If your doctor has prescribed you medication, take the medication. I've made the mistake so many times that I get overconfident, so I'll get into remission, and then I'll say, well, here's a cheat day. Here's a cheat day. Here's a cheat day. Oh, I might just take, half the dosage or whatever it is because I feel better. I feel, I've cured this. You always fall back into a flare-up. It's a slippery, slippery slope when you start cheating. And it's okay. But I would say plan your cheat days. Don't stack them one after another. Try not to have a cheat weekend. For me, it's typically the holiday season and the beginning of summer where I end up getting into these flare-ups. Make sure you stick to the recommendations of your doctor. Tip number 5, when I was in the hospital with my most severe flare-up for UC, across from me was someone in his late 50s or early 60s, and he went through it all. He was diagnosed with UC when he was younger, and of course, he's been through the whole gamut of treatments for colitis. And he was able to give me the wisdom and the word of warning and tell me which shortcuts not to take. And so what I would recommend is for anyone who's newly diagnosed to get a mentor. This is not necessarily a business mentor or a coach that you need to talk to every day, but have someone that you can talk to if you need information, if you need some advice. The word of wisdom from people who have done it before, that wisdom is extremely valuable. Of course, you have these online support groups, but someone that you can actually pick up the phone to and call when you need, or send an email to, is extremely, extremely valuable, especially at the early stages of navigating what this is. One thing I'll say is never underestimate the disease's ability from going from mild to severe. And that's where I think a lot of people run into problems. So you really need to listen to the words of the wise and take care of yourself if you are in that mild state. I'll throw in number 6 as a bonus piece of advice. Listen to your GI. They know best. Sometimes I think I know best, I know my body, but they see this every single day. So please listen to your GI. Don't fall for any conspiracies that are going around online. Listen to the trained medical professionals always. So to wrap it all up, just like anything in life, really, the more you own it, the more you own something about yourself, that you can be transparent with it, you can be authentic, you can be open and straightforward with people, the better off you're going to be. So more on this in the future. If you have any questions for me, you can always reach out. My email's in the description, so you can send me any questions that you have. And I'm happy to be a mentor for anyone who's currently newly diagnosed or going through a storm. So thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.